Well, in a weekend where there was a lot of uncertainty of whether or not if these games are going to be played after all the Wednesday games were postponed because of the protest of the police shooting of Jacob Blake and also the Black Lives Matter movement that is going on around the league. It turns out that we were able to get 10 of the 12 games in the books for this weekend, which include the game that I thought for sure it wasn't actually going to be played, and it turns out to be the game of the year. Now, as much as I want to talk about that game, and as much as I also want to talk about the game where one fan base definitely is going to be left fuming in terms of the referee decision and the usage of VAR in a specific rivalry game, I'm going to leave those games to tomorrow's video. I know, I can definitely feel your disappointment in terms of the fact that you thought I was going to probably review all these 10 games that have already gone on. Well, I could have do that until I realized that I'm doing this video at 10:08 in the evening, and that I feel like if I'm going to do these 10 games, I'm pretty much gonna finish this video no earlier than midnight, and that by the time I do upload these video, and sometimes when I have to switch board and kind of have to edit on my Premiere Pro, it takes longer to actually upload than I actually just pretty much press the record button, and I don't have to like edit on the Premiere Pro because it's two separate kind of clip. So with that being said, let us actually look at these first 6 games. And unfortunately, these first 6 games, yeah, there were a couple that were definitely very boring and definitely did not live up to the hype. And unfortunately, that's where we start with the first game, where remember how this Canadian Classic, the last time both Montreal versus Toronto play, and it ends in a 4-3 win for TFC, and we saw that this is the Canadian Classic that we of course know for, and this is why the Canadian Classic is called the Canadian Classic. Well, after this game, yeah, this was probably a shame to the Canadian Classic and probably a shame to Canada in a general, because this was probably the most boring game I have seen so far this season. Probably right up there in terms of that game between the Loons and RSL in the MLS's back tournament, where virtually nothing happened in that game. Now, the only difference between that game to this is that at least we did get a goal in this game, but even then, we got that goal from a penalty kick. Now, for the first half, yeah, for the first 30 minutes of this game, there was virtually nothing happen. I think the first shot in this game didn't came until the 21st minute, and that really the only exciting thing was when TSN broadcaster Luke Whaleman announced a breaking news talk about how Deloy Hansen have taken an absence of leaves, and hopefully this will be the last time we will hear about Deloy Hansen being the owner of RSL, and that sooner or later we will hear that he is going to be forced to sell the team, because as I mentioned back in the preview, and if you of course are living under a rock or not paying attention in terms of the whole MLS situation, Deloy Hansen basically made a very controversial statement, and that he is under a lot of scrutiny because of that, and that MLS is basically doing an investigation. Well, I would say the Players Association pretty much pressure MLS to do an investigation on that, and I won't be surprised if this investigation is going to lead to the termination of Deloy Hansen being the owner of RSL. Now, the first real kind of talking point in this game came in the 36th minute when De Leon, who of course came on for Patrick Mullins. By the way, Josie Altidore did not play in this game, and although in the beginning of the game they said that he did decide not to play this game for an unknown injury issue, yeah, we pretty much know what that unknown injury issue is, and that I have a feeling the reason why he decided not to play in this game is because he's been one of the player that has been very outspoken in terms of this whole issue of the whole Black Lives Matter, and he's been working very hard for these last couple of days, and that it just feel like his heart wasn't really going to play in this game, which I definitely don't blame him for not playing in this one. But instead, Patrick Mullins, of course, gets the start, and unfortunately, Mullins went down with an injury literally 25 minutes in, which De Leon came on into this game, and he almost scored just 11 minutes after he comes off the bench, but unfortunately, the goal was disallowed because because it was offside. I think they actually go to VAR for this instant, and that they had to change it later, and it was so obvious that it was offside. I think there was a couple of TFC player that was in an offside position, so yeah, I'm kind of surprised they actually go to VAR for that, but at least in this incident, we actually see VAR that actually is being used correctly and actually correctly rule that goal to be offside. Now, in the second half, TFC would get a penalty after there was a handball on Maurizio. Now, I know Impact's fans are not going to be happy with this call, and they think that it's harsh, the fact that that ball bounced right onto the arm of Marcel, and that, that probably shouldn't have been a handball. The only problem is, Marcel's hand was clearly in an unnatural position, and even though if that ball did kind of bounce off of him and hit his hand, when you handball the ball with your hands in an unnatural position, that is always going to be a penalty. And rightfully so, as Pozuelo was able to put away the penalty to give TFC the 1-0 lead. Montreal did try to search the equalizer, and I kind of should have put try with quotation mark because they just didn't feel like playing in this game. And I even heard a rumor that Montreal said that they didn't want to play in this game, but TFC decided to play this game either, and since both sides don't want to keep arguing among each other, they play this game either way, because it clearly showed that it seemed like the players were just not in a mindset of playing in this game, and that they just basically did nothing, and that they looked the complete opposite of the way that they play against Vancouver just a couple of nights ago. Now, they did have a chance to get the equalizer when Kyoto was able to score, but unfortunately he was in an offside position, and therefore that goal, of course, was disallowed. And that, of course, would be the final little thing to talk about in this game. Again, there's just not much to talk throughout this game, other than the fact that there was 6 shots compared to 3 that Montreal has, 2 shots on goal compared to 1 that Montreal has, 4 shots off target compared to 2 that Montreal has. Both teams had 0 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession, as TFC also now extend their unbeaten run to 18 games, and they're actually only 1 game short of tying the record of the longest unbeaten streak in the regular season in MLS history. But let's just hope that on Tuesday, when both of these teams play against each other, this time at BMO Field, is going to be much better than what we saw in this one that was just an absolute bore fest. But moving on, in terms of the next game, is Orlando. So Orlando, this has been a historic season for them. Not only the fact that they finally got themselves their first playoff appearance in the MLS is back tournament and went all the way to the final, only to lose to the Timbers in the final. But they did another historic thing in this game against Atlanta United, and that, of course, is get their first ever win against their hated rival. Now, in the first half, Atlanta had a big chance to get the opening goal when Lennon was able to had a free header, but Galese with an incredible save to able to rob him at that point. And then just 5 minutes later, Urso would score from Chris Mueller, and yeah, Guzan would definitely not want to look this one back, because this basically just went through his legs as he was trying to save that one, and that is definitely one that you gotta say that Guzan clearly should have saved that one. By the way, Orlando didn't really care about it. They got the 1-0 lead. It would be 2-0 in the 35th minute after Mueller would score from Michel and DK. Pereira did had a chance to make it 3-0, but unfortunately he missed a free header, and we head to halftime at 2-0 in this game. Now, in the second half, I think whatever Stephen Glass said to this Atlanta team have kind of fired up this team a little bit, because I thought in the second half, Atlanta really looked like they were the better team early and was really asking all the question for Orlando City, and that Galese once again had to come up big to deny Pity Martinez in the 66th minute, but ultimately Galese would be beaten in the 82nd minute when Brooks Lennon was able to score from Jurgen Damm and Ezekiel Barco. Damm, of course, making his first ever appearance for Atlanta coming off the bench, and who would have thought that he would just make instant impact to this Atlanta team by being on the helper chart just couple of minutes after he came on. And you're thinking, well, this is where it's gonna get interesting, and that if you're an Orlando City fans, boy, you should be biting your nail for the last couple of minutes of this game. But thankfully, they didn't have to do that, and a lot of that has to do with Atlanta decided to gave a poor giveaway from actually this poor giveaway from Pity Martinez, as Urso was actually able to pickpocket him and went through on goal before sliding it to Nani, who basically just scored the easiest goal in his career with a tap-in into the empty net to give Orlando City a 3-1 lead. Now, late in the game, in the 92nd minute, there was no red card given or a penalty that was given to Antonio Carlos after he decided to kick Lennon in the head. Now, I feel like this is clearly the wrong call. The fact that this not only should have been a red card, but also should have been a penalty for Antonio Carlos. And what's even more shocking is Carlos didn't even get a yellow card at this. Like, he basically got off scotch-free throughout this call, and that this is also kind of what makes me frustrated about MLS, and that I don't want to once again rambling about the VAR situation again, especially what happened after tonight and what I saw from my team, which I'll talk a little bit more of that tomorrow. But this is one of those times where VAR clearly got it wrong, and that this clearly should be a red card. Like, anytime when you decide to kick someone in the head or high boot someone with a challenge, that is always going to be a red card and always going to be a serious play. And the fact that this one was not is just kind of pretty shocking in terms of the VAR play. But the good news for Orlando is that controversial call kind of went in their favor, and even if that was a red card for Antonio Carlos, Atlanta might get one back to make it 3-2 and maybe make things interesting for the last 2 minutes or so. But I just felt like Orlando looked like they were comfortable enough to hold on for the victory, which eventually they did exactly that. As the shots in this game, 11 shots compared to 10 that Orlando City has, 4 shots on goal compared to 3 that Orlando City has, 6 shots off target compared to 6 that Orlando City has, and 1 shot that was blocked compared to 1 that Orlando City has. And possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that Orlando City has. And yeah, congratulations, Orlando City. You have finally beaten your rival that you've been hating them the most for the past 5 years. Well, not 5 years, but for the past 3 years. And that, I know Atlanta fans will probably make the excuse in saying, well, we did not have Joseph Martinez in this game. Yeah, I know you didn't have Joseph Martinez in this game, and maybe he could have made a difference, but at the same time, they didn't look good either in this game. And that, how I said that for Atlanta to be a good team and a team that can get wins, Pity Martinez and Ezekiel Barco need to show up. And in this game, Martinez, he had a couple of decent chances to score the goal, but he couldn't take it, and Barco was pretty much a non-factor in this game, and it's no surprise that Atlanta weren't able to get a win and only got a goal in this game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is another boring rivalry game. Boy, remember how I said in the preview where I thought this game should have been on FS1 instead of the New England versus Red Bulls game that was happening a little bit later after the kickoff of this game? Well, I'm glad that I did not make the decision to choose this game to be on national television, because if this game was going to be on national television, yeah, MLS rating is not going to improve anytime soon, because just like the Canadian Classic, this Hell is Real Derby is probably the worst Hell is Real Derby I have seen out of these last couple of Hell is Real Derby that both of these teams have played. Now, 17 minutes in this game, Eloy Rome was able to deny De Jong on the free kick, as Rome was able to be back in the starting 11. And so is Zadarian and Mokhtar for Columbus in this game, as Caleb Porter looked like he really were out for blood in this game and was really looking to start the strongest starting 11 against FC Cincinnati in this one. But FC Cincinnati did a good job to basically shut down Columbus for the most part in the first half. Although there was a couple of half chances for both of these teams, none of them were really a real chance that potentially could have been a breakthrough. Now, in the 34th minute, probably the only controversial moment of this game was that there was not a penalty given to Columbus after Zardes was brought down in the box. I thought Zardes, there was a couple of times in this game he definitely went down in the box a little bit too easily, but looking at the replay in this, I don't think this was one of them, and that this could have easily been a penalty that was given to Columbus, as that FC Cincinnati defender definitely had two hands, and it looked like he shoved Zardes in the box, and that if that's what is the case, that clearly should have been a penalty. But it was not given to the Columbus Crew, and we had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Ilaroon will have had to make another incredible save, and this time he had to prevent his own team to score a goal because Affle took a wicket deflection off of a free kick from Cincinnati and almost literally hits it into his own net, but Room with some cat-like reflexes was able to parry that one away to prevent this to be a 1-0 lead for FC Cincinnati. And for the remaining of the second half, yeah, it was very slow and lifeless in the second half. And I guess that's kind of an FC Cincinnati special, because I'm pretty sure Yapstan game plan in this is that he wants to make sure this game does not have a lot of flow. And I think he done a great job in this game in terms of not only shutting down Columbus' best attacker in Zadarian, Mokhtar, and also Zardes, but also when the games are kind of like this stop and go like we saw throughout this game, yeah, that's just kind of disrupt the rhythm of the Columbus Crew, and that they just are not as effective if these are kind of the game that they are playing in. But either way, it ends in a 0-0 draw between both of these teams. Shots in this game, 5 shots compared to 7 that Columbus had. 2 shots on goal compared to 3 that Columbus had. 2 shots off target compared to 3 that Columbus had. 1 shot that was blocked for both teams. And possession-wise, 39% possession compared to 61% possession for Columbus in this game. And, I think both teams will be happy with a point out of this game. I guess maybe the only thing that will not be happy is the fact that the Columbus Crew will feel like they probably could have got a win out of this game. But that being said, with the short rest that they had coming into this game, and even though they, of course, get some of their best player like Zadarian and Mokhtar and Room back in this game, Room was back at his best in this one, but obviously you can clearly see Zadarian, after that long layoff that he been having, he's still trying to get back to 100% fitness. And therefore, maybe that's the reason why he didn't really have a big impact, as you would see he usually do with this Columbus team. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Union versus DC United. Boy, oh boy, this game looked very similar to what happened last year when Philly basically put a 5 spot against DC and able to win 5-1 against DC United away at Audi Field, because the Union absolutely blitzed DC United in this game, and they blitzed them early in this one too. 7 minutes into this game, Castor Shabelko, who has really been struggling this season, and last game when he of course were able to finally break that duck, I didn't think that he was still kind of at his best and kind of looked like the same guy that scored a ton of goals for this Union team last year. Boy, oh boy, in this game, it looked like he was back to his old self, because he would, of course, score the opening goal, and I thought there was definitely some questionable defending for DC United in the set piece, and set piece was a huge nightmare for DC United in the defensive end in this game. Now, Blake would then deny Assad a chance to give DC United the equalizer straight away, before Shabilko would score a quick brace to give the Union a 2-0 lead. Then it would be 3-0 in favor of Philly, as Santos was able to score from Martinez. There was also a couple of decent chances for the Union to potentially get the 4th goal, but I'm pretty sure DC United was at least satisfied the fact that they were able to head to halftime at 3-0, because yeah, that first half from DC United, besides Assad making Blake to have to make a good save to kind of deny him, they were definitely not at their best. And in the second half, it didn't really get any better, because the Union once again was searching for that 4th goal. Santos almost got a brace like Shabilko when he, of course, hits the post, before Aronson would score from Shabilko and Mbizo. So that's what a good game this was from Shibilko, not only scoring the brace, but also on the helper chart too, to make it 4-0 in favor of DC United. DC did get a consolation goal just a couple of minutes later from Gresso and Moreno. Then Blake probably, well, actually this goal that the Union, of course, concede. Yeah, this is the one that I think Andre Blake would want to have it back, because this is the one that, Gresso definitely didn't hit this one with power, but the fact that this was kind of like near the near post, and that Blake did kind of get a hand toward that one, I feel like he probably could have done better, and especially some of the incredible save that Andre Blake has been doing throughout this tournament. This was definitely not one of the brightest moment that he has throughout this season. And I also say this tournament, I meant this tournament and this season too, because not only the fact that he's been great in the MLS's back tournament, but ever since we restarted play, he looked like he did not skip a beat in terms of the performance that he had in the MLS's back tournament. But this is one of those goals that he definitely does not want to look back, and probably say to himself that he should have done better with it. But the good news for his team is that at least that happened when his team were up 4-0 at that point, as Philly was able to win this one 4-1, although they did also had a couple of decent chances to potentially make it 5-1 in this game, but ultimately that was the final score of this one. As the shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 12 that DC United has, 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that DC United has. Both teams had 6 shots off target, 8 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that DC had, and possession-wise, dead even at 50% possession. And for the Union, they have now extended their unbeaten streak to 7 games and look to be a team that is going to contend for the top spot, or at least the top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference. And as for DC, yeah, Ben Olsen must be feeling the heat right now, because this is just getting worse and worse for DC every time they, of course, play. And I'm pretty sure a lot of DC United fans are demanding Olsen to basically be fired from this team with some of the resort that has gone on with this team. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is NYCFC, who look like they are back to their old self. And I guess maybe the reason why they're back to their old self is because they get Maxi Morales back in this game, and that he did came off the bench in the second half. And unsurprisingly, Maxi Morales, as soon as he get back to this NYCFC team, he just made this NYCFC team look like the team that finished first in the Eastern Conference last year. Now, in the first half, 16 minutes into this game, Keaton Parks was able to score from Matrita to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead, before it was almost 2-0 in favor of the home side when Chanel unfortunately hits the post. Sparrow then had to deny Matrita to prevent Chicago from going down 2-0, before Johnson actually had to deny Barrich, who clearly is snake bit with the way that he just cannot buy a goal this season. But the good news for the Chicago Fire is that just 1 minute later, and follow that incredible save from Sean Johnson, it would be Pineda score from Calvo and Madron to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And heading into the second half, you're thinking, well, the Chicago Fire finally got that equalizer, and that when you usually score a goal right on the stroke of halftime, you're going to have all the momentum heading into the second half. And I thought that they were going to potentially get that second goal over NYCFC. That is exactly not what happened, because in the second half, when NYCFC substitute Maxi Morales in this game, he made an instant impact when he was on the assist chart of Tinnerholm goal to give NYCFC a 2-1 lead. And then 2 minutes later, it could have been 3-1 in favor of NYCFC. And talk about another guy that seems like he's been snake bit this season, Abear. Yeah, he just cannot buy a goal whatsoever. Not even when he had a chance to basically slot a sitter from 5 yards out, and yet somehow, in some way, he still puts it wide of the mark. And that, I kind of almost feel sorry for him at times, with the way that you can clearly see he has lost all the confidence in that. When you're a striker and you start to have a goal drought like Abear is, the goal posts just seem much more smaller than it should be when you're actually a striker that is actually banging goals and have a lot of confidence in yourself. And right now, Aber clearly does not have any confidence whatsoever. Now, in the 74th minute, Callens was able to clear off the line from Elliot Coulier's shot, and that this moment was very similar to what happened in the Columbus game. And in general, I think for the Chicago Fire throughout this game looked very similar to what happened to that Crew Resort, where they had chances in this game, and they had moments to potentially score to really change the complexion of this game. And this was another one of them, as I mentioned, about Callens clearing the ball off the line from Coulier, because 1 minute later, Alexander Ring would score from Tinnerholm to give NYCFC a 3-1 lead, and if Coulier was able to score that goal to tie the game up at 2 apiece, I'm pretty sure NYCFC would not be scoring the third goal and pretty much put this game set and match up until that point. I mean, yeah, this has been frustrating if you're a Fire fan, and as much as I want to make the joke about how, see, this is what the Chicago Fire is, where it seemed like after that good performance against FC Cincinnati at home, they're back to their inconsistent self and lose their next game against NYCFC. But when you look at these first 3 games since the restart for the Chicago Fire, I'm also going to say that they kind of been a little bit unlucky, in that in some of these games, they were able to just take them up, able to score in the moment and the chances that they had. This could have been a Chicago Fire team that you could say that maybe they will be unbeaten coming out of this one and go on a 3-game unbeaten run heading into next week. But instead, they only won 1 game and lose another one in this one against NYCFC. In terms of shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 12 that the Chicago Fire had, 7 shots on goal compared to 6 that the Chicago Fire has, 2 shots off target compared to 4 that the Chicago Fire has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Chicago Fire has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that the Chicago Fire has. But now, moving on into the last match that I'm going to be reviewing, is the game that, of course, was on FS1, although, as I said in the preview, I didn't like the fact that this one was on FS1, and it turns out, after what we saw in this game, it was kind of the right decision by Fox to put this one on FS1, because I thought this game was pretty entertaining to watch, and although at times you did see both teams kind of being a little bit disjointed and have problem in terms of finding that crucial final ball to score the goals, I thought this game was really up for grabs, and that it looked like for the last 20 minutes, we were definitely going to get a goal from either of these teams, and that whoever scored that next goal is probably going to get all 3 points. Now, in the first half, 3 minutes into this game, Turner was able to rob Barlow a chance for the Red Bulls to take the opening goal, although I feel like Barlow clearly should have done better in terms of that, and clearly should have given the Red Bulls a quick 1-0 lead. The Red Bulls, of course, they were looking like the better side early on in this game, but quickly the Revs started to wake up, and that this game kind of started to be a little bit even between both of these teams. Now, in the 28th minute, Mines probably should have headed the opener for the Red Bulls, as he had a free header to aim at, but unfortunately he heads that one wide. But he would kind of redeem himself just 6 minutes later, because Fernandez would score from Mines to give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. Before, in the 36th minute, and I don't know why I write Beric there. That was kind of a little bit of a mistake on that. It's actually Maric that denied Gustavo Bo in that instant, even though I know Beric and Maric kind of sounds like the same. But Bo, of course, eventually did score his goal in the 41st minute when he scored from Theo Bunbury. Yeah, that defending from the Red Bulls were definitely not good in that play, and that seemed like everybody on that Red Bulls defense just completely fell asleep in terms of that goal that the Revs were able to tie the game up. Now, in the second half of play, very even play from both of these teams again. In the 65th minute, Bo hit the post on a 24-yard screamer. Gustavo Bo could have easily had 2 or even a hat trick in this game if he was able to be a little bit more clinical and not be so unlucky of his shot gets pinged off the post. But again, the game really looked like it was really up for grabs, and it kind of opened up for both teams, but the lack of the final third and the fact that both attack looked really disjointed throughout the second half was the reason why eventually this game ended in a 1-1 draw. Now, one thing that I also just realized I forgot to put it on the board is that Tim Parker actually got sent off late in the game, and apparently he accidentally kind of lift his leg onto Tajon Buchanan's special spot, and that of course led to the red card. Now, I thought that red card was kind of a little bit harsh because, again, it looked very accidental, and that I don't think Parker had any intention in terms of lifting his leg that high to basically kick Tajon Buchanan in the special spot. And what makes me even more frustrated about that red card is that if that, of course, is a red card play, then why in the world did Antonio Carlos got away with his red card in this game against Atlanta by kicking an opponent in the head? And in many ways, I feel like kicking an opponent in the head clearly should be a red card compared to an incident where Parker might have just accidentally kicked Buchanan in the special spot, and that maybe that should have been a yellow card in that play. And it also kind of just another evidence of why there is so much inconsistency in terms of VAR, and that tomorrow when I actually do the second part of the review, this kind of discussion of inconsistency is going to pop up, and kind of a little bit of a spoiler alert. The reason why I actually decided not to start this review for 30 minutes is because I was pretty upset that once again the Quakes got screwed over in that Cali Clasico because of bad defensive mistake. Although I will also kind of explain tomorrow that the ref might not be 100% the reason why the Quakes actually lost that game against the Galaxy, and that there is a bigger reason why the Quakes lost to the Galaxy in tonight's Cali Clasico. But that video, of course, will be for tomorrow, as alongside with the crazy game that also happened tonight that probably shouldn't have happened because of what has happened around the MLS world, and also what has happened to this greedy guy called Deloy Hansen, who's now being forced to take an absence of leave. But again, I'll talk a little bit more about those games tomorrow. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the last 6 games that I'm going to be reviewing from this week.